Hello everyone, and welcome to the AGON Leadership Webinar. Today's topic will be 5 constructive ways to address conflict. I'm going to turn things over now to AGON Leadership's Senior Consultant and President, Kathy Leinbach.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. All of us face situations where we're not on the same page as other people, and too often those disagreements get emotionally strained. Today we're going to explore 5 constructive ways that you can address that conflict, 5 different strategies that you could consider so that in the inevitable situation when you disagree with someone else, relationships don't fall apart and tempers don't escalate. Specifically, we are going to be addressing 3 main factors that influence how we interpret what other people say, 5 conflict management styles, and we'll be discussing them so that you understand where each of them is appropriate. And at the end of the workshop, I'd like you each to identify one way that you will handle conflict differently. First, let's consider briefly what causes conflict. Conflict can arise because we don't understand the other person's position. We have not had clear communication so that we understand where each other's coming from. And the other cause of conflict is when we want different things than the other person wants. We have different preferences and perspectives. So the first cause of conflict is that we're not getting messages back and forth effectively, so we don't understand where the other person is. And the second cause is that the other person's in a different place than we are. They have different preferences, different perspectives, and therefore their best option may be different than the best option from our perspective. First of all, we're going to explore understanding the other person's position. How can we have clear communication? Let's consider what the elements of communication are. Communication includes a lot of things. It includes talking and it includes listening. It includes writing and reading. Communication can be through words. It can also be through pictures, through gestures. Tone of voice impacts communication. Body language impacts communication. Communication is a many-faceted activity. Now, the challenge comes in the accuracy of communication. When both the sender and the receiver of a message have the same mother tongue and are communicating in that language, so they both learn to speak English as toddlers and they're talking with each other in English, or they both learn to speak Spanish as toddlers and they're talking with each other in Spanish. When that's the case, so we don't have a language barrier. We're both fluent all of our lives in the same language, and that's the language we're talking in. When the meaning the sender tries to send, the information that I'm trying to communicate to you, versus what the receiver interprets the message to mean, what you hear me saying, what you think it is I'm saying. On average, those are only 50% the same. So right now, what I'm trying to convey to you and what you're hearing, there's only about a 50% overlap. Because of this, to me, surprising inaccuracy of communication, we can disagree with each other when we actually are thinking the same thing. So getting the accuracy of communication up is very important. Some of you may have heard of the concept of reflective listening. Reflective listening is when, after you've told me something, I say, so what you're saying is, and then I repeat what I understood you to say. Chances are that only half of the time will what I say be exactly what you were trying to relay to me. you might say, oh, you got the first 2 points correctly, but the third and fourth point, what you just repeated back to me isn't what the message I was trying to get across. And so then you tell me the third and fourth point again. And I say, oh, so you mean this and that. And then your response may be, you got the third point now, but fourth point, you're not hearing what I'm trying to say yet. So then you tell it another way. And then I repeat back. And you say, oh, you're on the same page now. And the little details that might be different don't matter. So we have gone back and forth. You've explained things to me 3 times. I've said back what I thought I heard 3 times. And now we're just about in agreement. We're basically on the same page. Very often, all we do is we say a message once, and then when someone acts in a way that looks like they never heard that message, we're surprised. But to get accurate communication, we have to have a conversation where the receiver of a message repeats back their understanding, and the sender of the message indicates which parts they received correctly, and then repeats, says in a different way, the parts that they didn't get across to the listener. Accurate communication takes patience. It does take time to go back and forth 3 times, to have 6 iterations of that message. But if you're communicating essential information, if you're giving instructions to someone at work about what their next task should be, if you're training somebody on a new piece of equipment, then it's very important that they get the message, not just that the words went in their ears and maybe went into their brains. So accuracy of communication requires that we take time to go back and forth to ensure understanding. And we will save time in the long run because so much more of our work will be on track when we truly understand what someone is telling us. Another thing that's really important in in-person communication is the impact of different parts of the communication signals on how we interpret a message. When we're speaking, writing, reading, listening, we're using words, but the words themselves only contribute to 7% of the interpretation of the message. So if I said, I'm so happy you're all here today, would you think I was really happy? Oh, you wouldn't, because tone of voice contributes 28% to the interpretation of the message. So the words we say are only heard as being accurate words if our tone of voice matches the words. So if I said, I'm so happy you're all here today, I'm looking forward to our time together for this hour, my tone of voice is more positive and welcoming, and so you're much more likely to believe the words. So if words are 7% of the contributor to how someone receives a message from you in person, and tone of voice is 28%, what's the other 65%? The other 65% is body language. If I said, I'm so happy to see you today, and I wasn't even looking at you, I had my back to you, I was working on something on the computer, you wouldn't be convinced, despite my words and a pleasant tone of voice, that I really was happy to see you. In fact, I probably haven't seen you yet if I just heard you walk into the room. So eye contact, where we're looking, whether Our body looks tired, exhausted, limp. Are we frowning? Are we smiling? So many things about body language indicate to the person what the sender, what the talker's message really is. And often, if body language doesn't match tone and words, people will not take your words seriously. Now think, since words is 7%, tone of voice is 28%, and body language is 65% of the impact on interpretation of a message when we're in a room, person to person, what is the impact with emails or texts? If there are no emoticons in the message, only 7% of the total communication package has been expressed. So when I quickly send a text or an email, and if I don't proof it carefully, there could be words out of place, or I could have used words that are a bit sharper than I intended. So I quickly send off a words-only message, and you read it on the other end, and there's a word in there that causes your blood to boil, or at least it causes you to sit up and take notice, and you think, oh, why are they upset? I would never use that word if I was calm. Oh dear, they're mad at me. So we reply back, what are you mad about? And the other person says, what do you mean, what am I mad about? I'm not mad. Well, yes, you were. Your first message showed you were mad. Now we've got someone who wasn't upset at all. They just didn't think carefully about the words they were sending. Upset, and the person they're trying to communicate with upset. Because we're only dealing with words. In emails and texts, we don't have tone of voice and we don't have body language. An important action as a result of realizing this is that if we have a negative emotion in response to a text or an email, we should not reply using words only. We need to go see the person, or at the very least pick up the phone and call them so we can have the tone of voice benefit in our communication and say, what did you mean by the message you just sent me? Well, I was trying to change our 6 o'clock appointment tonight to 7 o'clock tonight because I need to see the doctor and they can't see me until the very end of the day. Oh, you weren't canceling out on me. No. Well, your message said you needed to change tonight's appointment. Oh, I forgot to say change the time. Would an hour later be appropriate? Whenever you react negatively to a words-only message, please move to a situation where you can have two-way communication and you can experience tone of voice so that you can actually practice reflective listening, not practice, experience reflective listening, talk back and forth, and not get stuck in a bad place where emotions spiral out of control. Another communication technique so that you understand the other person is to ask questions. If you're not clear, ask. Closed questions and open questions both have their place. A closed question is one that can be answered with yes or no. So if I call someone up and say, oh, I just got a message from you that you want to change tonight's appointment. Are you wanting to change it to a later time today? Yes. Oh, okay. What time do you think will work? Are you saying you can't meet today? No, that's not what I'm saying. So a closed question can just help you figure out which of two possible paths people are on. Open questions help you go into more depth. Open questions start with one of the 5 W's or H. They start with who, what, why, where, when, and how. open questions are questions that will maybe say, what is your alternative to us meeting at 6 o'clock tonight? Oh, I was thinking we could meet at 7, but if that later time today doesn't work for you, I am available tomorrow evening. Which would you prefer? Open questions make room for someone to explain. If you're not on the same page, you can say, oh, why did my idea not sit well with you? Oh, because I've tried something like that several times and it hasn't worked. Well, what have the other conditions been when you've tried that? Well, I've tried it with people in new situations and it just doesn't work. And then I may respond, oh, I agree. When I've tried that approach with people that I'm not familiar with, it hasn't worked very well. We seem to need to know each other and have a certain degree of trust for that approach to work. But when I've tried it with people that I tend to be on the same page with, it really speeds up our work. It just is such a great approach. Oh, well, yeah, we do know each other fairly well. We've worked on projects together before. Okay, let's try your way. Closed questions are when you just want a quick check. Are we on the same page or are we not? Open questions, starting with who, what, why, where, when, and how, are used when you want to dig deeper. Open questions are really important when we don't know the other person's perspective. Well, what are your experiences in this area? Why are you suggesting that what Mary proposed isn't likely to work? When have you been tripped up in this type of project? Digging to understand where other people are coming from, and also asking questions to learn their knowledge, learn from their experience, so that the current thing you're working on together can move forward better. So we spent a few minutes exploring ways that we can communicate better so that we understand where the other person's coming from, that we understand their perspective. Often with using these techniques, we find out that we aren't on different places. All the group members could be on the same page. We just hadn't talked clearly enough before to realize we're all on the same page. Now, other than the communication techniques, which are very helpful to find out you are on the same page, the other conflict challenge can be when we come from a very different place. We have different perspectives and different preferences. To overcome this type of conflict, we have to understand what matters to the other person. We have to be aware of their different preferences and perspectives. And their different perspectives could be, often are, a difference in task focus versus relationship focus. And also often perspectives differ because of a difference between self-focus and other people focus. First of all, let's explore the task focus versus relationship focus difference. Some people, when they're working on something, they just want to get the job done. Following the procedure and getting the task done is what they want. If they're washing the windows on the house, they want to get water and cleaner and a brush, something to dry off the window after it's washed. They're really focused on the task. They're not thinking about their tone of voice. Mary, could you bring a fresh pail of water over here, please? Just because they want to speed up the task doesn't mean they're upset with Mary. But Mary may feel, oh, they're ordering me around. They're not treating me as though I'm a capable person. Oops. Relationship wasn't developed. There was no focus on relationship. And relationship is, do we get along? Do we appreciate each other? Do we value each other? Are we operating in a friendly manner? For some people, relationship matters more than getting the task done, because they know that we'll get more done in the long run if we have a good relationship between us. And if it takes a long time this morning for us all to get comfortable and friendly with each other, oh well, the windows aren't going to get done until this afternoon. But we'll still be speaking to each other after the windows are done. We'll be able to go and have dinner together. We were planning on going and playing putt-putt together this evening. And the way that guy's talking to me now, I don't want to do anything social, anything optional with him today. He's so task-focused. A lot of conflict can arise when some people in the situation are focusing only on the task, and some people in the situation are focusing only on the relationship. Or even some people focusing primarily on the task, and others focusing primarily on the relationship between the individuals. We will be coming back and referring to this again in a few minutes about how our task focus versus our relationship focus impacts conflict. Now, the self-focus versus the other people focus. If I'm concerned about getting my job done, or I'm concerned about other people feeling positive, other people making a contribution, other people's needs being met, do I want to get acknowledged for great ideas that made this job go well? Or do I want to make sure that all of other people's contributions to getting the job done are acknowledged? Am I most concerned about me getting credit, me making a notable contribution? Or am I more concerned that other people are allowed to make contributions, other people feel valued? Let's move on to a 5-element conflict model, which utilizes these concepts. There are a variety of conflict resolution styles, and Thomas Kilman developed a model with 5 main conflict resolution styles. These styles reflect self or other interest and task or relationship focus. You'll see that beside the vertical arrow on this rectangle, on this grid, self-interest and importance of task are written. The arrow points up. When I am on the left side of this diagram, if I'm not concerned about my own interests being served, then I'm functioning near the bottom of that arrow, near the bottom of the chart. If I'm not extremely concerned about getting this task done or the methodology for getting this task done, then I'm near the bottom of that left arrow. The horizontal arrow is about others' interests and the importance of relationships. If I don't care if others' interests are met, I'm towards the left end of that horizontal arrow. If I really want other people's interests to get served, I'm over at the right side of the chart. Likewise with relationship. If I don't care whether the other people think I'm friendly, whether I've got good rapport with them, I'm over to the left of the horizontal line of the conflict resolution chart. But if I do want to be continually on good terms, I want to maintain speaking terms, socializing terms, etc. with the people involved, then I'm over to the right side. Let's take a look at one of the conflict styles and where it is positioned. The bottom left corner of this chart, I've put in the word avoider. This is someone who avoids conflict. Now, since avoider is at the bottom left, it means that I, as a power figure, or I just as a person, I'm not concerned about the outcome of this conflict. It's not an issue that really matters to me. We have a difference of opinion, but it's not an important difference to me. I don't need my preferences met. And the importance of the task. It's, I really don't care how this task gets done, or I even really don't care if the task gets done. I want to avoid conflict. I'll walk away from this problem because it's not important to me, and if this task doesn't get done, nothing bad's going to happen. On the horizontal axis, it probably doesn't matter to other people too, or other people either, and it really doesn't matter if I have a strong relationship with these people. I don't care if they're happy. I don't care if we're on speaking terms. So I can just walk away from this conflict. I may never see these people again. So if we never resolve this conflict, it doesn't matter. In fact, if I'm never going to see them again, why am I even in conflict with them? I'm wasting energy. So this bottom left quadrant, or this bottom left point of avoiding, is when I'm saying I don't need to resolve this conflict. I can just walk away with it, avoid the conflict, move myself out of the position, and don't worry about it. Because it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me that whether others' interests are met. And if the task doesn't happen, it doesn't. And if I don't have a good relationship with those people, I don't. No big deal. The second type of conflict is the accommodator. In this case, say I'm the one on the left axis, I'm saying, I really don't care what happens here. I don't have a strong preference. And if the job we were going to do doesn't get done, oh well, that'll get resolved some other way sometime. But I really do care that other people feel valued. And I care that I keep a positive relationship with them. So I'm going to let them make the decision, and I'm just going to go along with it. I'm going to go high on the horizontal arrow and say, your interests matter to me. It's important to me that we stay friends. So I'm going to accommodate your preferences. I'm not going to worry at all about my preferences, and I'm not going to worry about timeliness and getting this job done, because those things are not worth the risk of you being unhappy and us no longer being friends. Let's look at a couple of examples. Avoiding, if I meet a stranger and we're struggling over where somebody's parked in the parking lot, do I really care? If they're parked in a disabled parking spot and they don't have a disabled sticker and I see them get out of the car and they're walking fine, no disability evident at all, well, do I go make a big deal about it? Maybe if I care about the rules being followed, I'll say, oh, did you notice that was a disabled-only spot? And if they say, yeah, so what? There's no other close spots. Well, I don't need to stay talking with them and getting angry. I don't need the negative emotional energy in my body. I can just walk away. Being an accommodator is when I get a really good seat at a open-seated concert, and I'm thinking, wow, what a view I've got. This is such a great view. Oh. And then I happen to be at the end of an aisle, at the end of a row, and someone comes along with a friend in a wheelchair. And I'm on the only row that there's space for a wheelchair to sit. And the person comes up and says, oh, excuse me, but would you mind taking another seat so that I could sit beside my wheelchair friend in this wheelchair accessible location? If I'm an accommodator, I'll say, sure, get up and go elsewhere. I'm interested in other people enjoying the concert, and I don't need a big flare-up with anybody. So I go and find another seat, even though the acoustics or the line of sight may not be as desirable. A third conflict resolution style is competitor. This is when I care about my interests and I care about the task being done properly and the task being done in a timely manner, and I am going to win. I may be the manager of a project and deadlines are coming up, and I know that the client requires us to pay a penalty. The client pays less if we miss deadlines on this project. Well, I want my paycheck. The company needs to not lose money on this project. So as the project leader, I require that people stick to the timelines. We have to get this done. Now, others may say, but it's a glorious day today, and I was planning on golfing this afternoon after work, and I don't see how we can get this done by normal closing time. We may have to work 2 or 3 hours overtime tonight. And, you know, this is the night that your family was going to come to my house for dinner, Bill. Come on. And I say, I'm sorry. I want to have dinner with your family. And I agree, it's a gorgeous day for golf. But we took off on time every day last week because of the good weather. Your family came to my house on the weekend. We had a great time together. Right now, we have deadlines that need to be met by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is a repeat customer who has the potential to be an ongoing customer for a long time. And as the manager of this project, it is my responsibility to the client, my responsibility to the company, and my responsibility to you to keep you employed and provide income for your household to see that we stay on track. So we will be working probably 2 or 3 hours overtime tonight so that this project is done for our 8 o'clock meeting with the client tomorrow. Now we're going to look at an option in the middle of the chart. This is called the compromiser. The compromiser says, I care about meeting the criteria that I've been charged with, that task. I care about having a reputation of getting the work done, but I also care about the other people. I really want to be friends. I do want to socialize with them tonight as planned. Well, you know, this client, we've never been late with them, and they're basically understanding people. I'll call and see if we can change the appointment till 1 o'clock tomorrow with them. And then we will be able to finish the project tomorrow morning and still have the touch base meeting, the progress report meeting with them on the same day as it was originally scheduled. So we're in a win-win. We both win something, But we're also in a lose-lose situation in compromise because we both lose something. The client asked for the meeting at 8 a.m. and we said yes. We're asking them to change to 1 o'clock. So their opinion of us is not going to be as strong. They're not going to think of us as much as being prompt and on top of things. And our reputation as a company and my reputation as a project leader are going to have a little chink in them. Can't let this happen very often. Now, the fifth situation is collaboration. Oh, this is where my self-interest and the importance of the task are honored, and other people's interests and the importance of the relationship are honored. We say, so why is it that you're reluctant to work overtime tonight? Well, we were going to go golfing and then have a family barbecue together. And I really would like to do that. Okay, well, because the kids are coming, we don't want dinner late, so we were only going to do 9 holes of golf, weren't we? Yes. So if we leave at 5, we can have 9 holes of golf done by 6:30. We can have a barbecue and family time from 6:30 till 7:30 or 8, and then we could come back to the office and work for 2 to 3 hours and finish the project. And both of us stay up to watch the 11 o'clock news, so that's not going to delay our bedtime. What do you think of that? Oh, that's fantastic. We'll still have the project done before we go to bed tonight, so we can have our 8 o'clock meeting with the client tomorrow. Wow. Good solution. Most of us in our lives tend to think that compromise is the best option. Excuse me. We think, okay, we have to give and take. And we've heard that a lot in our lives. We have to give and take. There's always give and take. This model suggests that we don't have to compromise all the time. There are some times we don't get beyond compromising. Sometimes that we don't have a complete win-win solution. But some people lose a few of their preferences so that we can meet in the middle somewhere. Compromise is really common. But the primary reason I believe that compromise tends to be the most common conflict resolution style is that we don't question, we don't ask questions in a calm voice. We don't try to understand where the others are coming from. We don't give ourselves a few minutes to be creative about solutions. We think that win-win is impossible. We've experienced it so seldom that we just stroke it off with possibilities list. And then we go to compromise because we don't want to be a competitor and force our way around. We don't want to be an accommodator and give in on everything. So we say compromise is the in-between. Let's go there. But let's go to collaboration more often. Let's find out what really matters to the other people. Let's find out why they're asking for what they're asking for. Find out why they want the project deadline changed. When we're at the beginning of the project, negotiating project terms. Find out why they want to change the location of a meeting or the date or time of a meeting. And see how we can come to win-win situations. Let's look at a few real-life situations here. And I'm going to ask you, is this an avoider? Is the appropriate conflict resolution style in each situation being an avoider, an accommodator, a competitor, a compromiser, or a collaborator? When you're deciding where to take your child for their birthday lunch, is it going to be your interests or their interests that you focus on? Focusing on their interests says you'll be an accommodator. Now, you may say you get to pick which of these 5 places we go for lunch, or you get to pick as long as it's not going to cost more than $7 a person for lunch. And then they get to pick where they want, and the parent says, okay, your day, your choice. I'm accommodating. The second possibility, the second situation I want to look at is, what about when there's an apartment building fire? And a determination needs to be made about what each firefighter will do at the scene, what the building residents will do, and what spectators will do. Well, the fire chief should be in charge. The fire chief is expected to focus on the task. Get this fire out with as little damage and as little human injury as possible. So there should be no arguing. There should be no disagreeing at the site of the fire about which firefighter is going to go in and rescue people, which firefighters are getting the hoses where the building residents are going to evacuate to, and any curious onlookers, how far back they have to stay. The fire chief is in charge. The fire chief acts like a competitor, totally focused on their task, being in charge and directing others. The third situation is deciding where to go for an inexpensive weekly lunch with work colleagues. Say that some of you at work go out every Wednesday for lunch, and you've agreed that the lunch bill is not going to be more than $7. We have to pick a place that's economical. And as you're walking out the door to the parking lot, oh, where are we going today? And everybody's, oh, good question, don't know, where are we going? Well, indecision can lead to using up an awful lot of your lunchtime. You don't want to do that. But nobody really cares where they go. So it may simply be, Joe, your turn to drive, take us someplace. And you just said, we're going to avoid conflict. Joe's just going to pull into a parking lot at an eatery. We're going to eat there. We're avoiding conflict. Another situation is picking the types of activities to do at a summer company social. At a summer company social, you really want everyone to like what they're doing. We want people that like the things I like to be happy. We want people that like other things to be happy. So it is worth investing time here to find out the range of activities that our staff like. We need to collaborate so that summer social really is a great time for everyone. We need relationships built well. And we need to have a summer social. We're not just going to not have it because that won't enhance relationships. That would ensure that we don't have arguments at a summer company social, but it wouldn't build stronger relationships. And in this case, the task at hand is increasing people's comfort with their colleagues and camaraderie with their workplace colleagues. So number 4 is a case where you may want to invest the time to collaborate and get a great list of options of activities at that company social. And a fifth situation is deciding who sits in which desk within a department's office space, who sits near the window, by the heat vent, under the ceiling light. Now, some people may say, oh, big deal, this isn't a void. But there are some people that, due to eye problems, need to be by a window with bright light or under the ceiling light. They need as much light as possible. There are some people that their body heats up quicker than others, and they shouldn't be by the heat vent. They'll be at work in tank tops and shorts every day, even in below zero weather, if they've got to sit by the heat vent. Where there are others that'll have an outdoor coat on if they're not by the heat vent. And deciding on desk location very well may be best done by compromise. What things matter most to Mary? What things matter most to Jim? What things matter most to Sue? And if the things that matter the most to each of them are different, then you can place them accordingly. That would be collaboration if everyone got their preference. But maybe some people will sit near the heat vent but not right by it, or close to a ceiling light but not right under it. Figuring out the best placement so that everyone is positioned to do their best at work may be a compromising situation. It is totally okay to use each of these methods in appropriate situations. And compromise and collaborate are often the toughest ones, but in situations that don't have a long-term impact, compromise is best. Compromise takes a lot less time than collaborating, but so investing all the time to get a win-win situation on something that only occurs for an hour every quarter may not be a good use of time. But when it's about a project that provides 20% of your annual revenue, collaborating and having everybody feeling good, everyone winning, is well worth the extra day you may have to spend to get program parameters developed that suit everybody's needs. I'd like you to think of at least one thing you're going to do as a result of this workshop. What will you do? When will you do it? And how will it impact your life when you make this change? I'm sure that you're listening to this webinar to learn something about having less stressful conflict. So when you make a change by implementing something from this webinar, you'll experience less stress. You can experience greater results. You can experience happier relationships, stronger interpersonal relationships. What will you do differently as a result of this webinar? When will you start doing it? And how will it impact your life? I wish you the best as you move forward to use words, tone of voice, and gestures to express your perspectives with people. That you ask questions to understand. That you use reflective listening to confirm that you're on the same page. And that you think about whether avoiding, accommodating, competing, compromising, or collaboration is the best way to handle the next conflict that you experience. May you have a wonderful day and a great week and minimal conflict in your world. Are there any questions from any? We're going to send you an email asking you for feedback, what went well, and your wishes and concerns, how today could have been better. Now we have a few minutes for questions. Are there any questions from anyone that's on the line?